Let me start you off with a story. There was a mom and a dad. They had a son, and he was a freshman in college, and he blew off that first year of college. And anybody relate to that? Okay, some of you. Yeah, you know, it was like a zero that first year of college. He didn't do well, and in fact, they kicked him out. And so they said, you know what, son? If you want to go to school, you're going to have to work this summer. You're going to have to pay for this yourself. So he was working all summer long. One of the things, though, the family was taking a summer vacation, and this year was a big deal because they're going to Greece. But the son couldn't go. That was part of his punishment, that he had to stay home and work. And the family went to Greece. So they go to Greece, and they're doing the tour, and they go up on this mountain where the Spartan women would sacrifice their unruly children. Actually, the Spartan women sacrificed their defective children. She sent him a card, and she said, son, we went to Greece, and up this mountain we saw where the Spartan women sacrificed their defective children. Wish you were here. Okay, today we're talking about honoring your father and mother. It's Father's Day. We miss Mother's Day, so we're kind of doing both here. But how many of you have thought about doing that with your children before? Come on, boy, we got a lot of liars in the group. It's just as much a sin to lie as anything else. So, Debbie, I really like that rocking chair. I'm looking back, and Debbie's just rocking back and forth. Yeah, that should be on the list for me next time. So anyway, so today for people who are visiting and just with us for the first time, we're going to continue on in our 10 Commandment series, and today is commandment, the 5th commandment. We were in the 1st commandment last week, and we're jumping ahead because it is Father's Day today, and we wanted to make this a special day. So I said, you know what? We'll do the honor your father and your mother today, and that's the 5th commandment. And so if you're kind of messed up on that, sorry about that. You'll catch up. It is out of order, but we'll do okay. And you know what? I'm really excited. Always excited to be outside. I really am. I mean, it is a lot of work to get this tent set up, to get this stuff set up, and there's never quite enough time, no matter how much you fit. But it's really a good thing. I mean, how many people like worshiping outside? Well, there we get hands. Yeah. And you know, I want it known. This is on video, so we have this. This is the first CFC worship service on this property. Huh? Yeah. So I might want to write that down. You know, somebody says later on if we ever build a building or something, well, the first service is on this date. We said, no, it was back then when we met outside under a tent. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited the fact that we're going to be doing groundbreaking for the prayer chapel. That is going to be so cool. I think what an opportunity to minister. These crosses that have been put up, Ike, how many years ago? You helped. 8? 10? I mean, these crosses have been here quite a while.
How long, Bruce?
Bruce?
I don't have a date. 10 years ago.
Yeah, okay. So, but they've ministered to many people going by, and I just looking forward to seeing how that prayer chapel ministers to people going by as well. Is also with the well that we're putting in, and we'll get more to that. I don't want to get into that. So I'm going to get started here. A little bit of recap. Last week we were on commandment number 1, and we looked at the commandment tells us to honor God. Today, honor mom and dad. Last week was honoring God, and we're not to have anything else before God. Not work, not a spouse, not your children, not anything comes before God. We don't allow anything in place of, in front of God, instead of God, or in addition to God. We don't do that. And so today, honoring your father and mother. Too often, young people, I know I was guilty of this, think, you know, I was young enough that I couldn't do anything myself. You know, couldn't go make decisions for myself and this, but mom and dad were basically a necessity. They're basically a necessity to keep me going. Parents, you ever feel like that? Like I'm just here to dole out the money and to help the kids go. And we had those moments in life. And then later on in life, now I realize how vital mom and dad were, how really, you know, they gave, they sacrificed, and they did for me. And I do realize not everybody's had a family like I did. I do recognize that some people, unfortunately, come from a pretty difficult background, and I'm sorry for you. But I've been blessed. I've just been blessed, and that's all there is to it. I was watching yesterday Urban Impact Pittsburgh Man Up Conference. It's Mike Tomlin co-founded the conference 8 years ago. It's about making an impact in the children's lives, especially the fatherless. And I get these stats here. They gave us some statistics for fatherless children in America. First of all, you need to know that there are 20 million children in America without a dad at home. 20 million children without a dad at home in America. Fatherless children are 4 times more likely to be poor. Fatherless children are 20 times more likely to have behavioral issues. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from fatherless homes. 90%. 70% of juveniles in state institutions come from fatherless homes. 71% of all high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. How about this? 75% of adolescent patients in chemical abuse centers come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with displaced anger grew up in a fatherless home. 85% of all youth in prison come from fatherless homes. 71% of teen pregnancies come from fatherless homes. And 63% of all youth suicides come from fatherless homes. That hit home for me. Many of you in our family know that my nephew took his life this year. He didn't have a fatherless home, but there's the fact of suicide, and that's hard. That's hard. And so I sent my brother a text this morning, bright and early, and anyway, you know, our culture is going to tell you, and they tell us that, you know, the traditional family is not that important. It's not that big. Sociologists will tell you that they don't need to have a mom and a dad. And these statistics don't lie. Liars can figure, but figures don't lie. How many know that? When you get numbers like that, and then let me add to this. When you have, how many know that there are children in homes who there's a dad there, a father there, but he's not a dad. He's just taking up space. He's not being the father, not being the dad that he could be. He's just there. And it's just kind of not much of a relationship at all with the mother. So if you factor that in, these numbers go higher. The guy who's in the home taking up space, not being the dad that he needs to be. So, you know, fathers, it's a big call. It's a big call, and you know, God bless you. It's a tough call. A lot of us here, most of us here probably are beyond raising our children. We've raised our children. Now we're looking at grandkids. Yay! Yeah, and we're spoiling the daylights out of them and sending them home and getting even with the kids, right? So what I have for you today, you might say, well, Tim, I don't know if we got any of this. My kids are gone. My kids are grown. You still have stuff that you can take to your children. You can take to your grandchildren. You can take to somebody else, and you can still give this to them and help them along their way as well. So we want to keep moving on that. Let me just say that the importance of an actively involved father in a home just can't be overstated. It just can't be overstated. You know, men have to be involved in that. So this 5th commandment, honor your father and mother. God lays down this principle for life that will determine how we relate to every relationship around us. You know, how every relationship around us is going to turn out. I believe honoring your father and mother, the home, is a foundation for our culture, our society. No nation or group of people is stronger than the family structure that make them up. As a home goes, I believe the nation goes. And I've said this before, and I truly believe this, that Satan, one of his biggest ploys is to divide the home. Destroy the home by destroy this. What was the very first thing that God did after he created Adam and Eve? He brought them together in marriage, right? They became one flesh, he said in Genesis 2. So they became one flesh. So that was the first thing. What does Satan want to do? He wants to undo everything God does. And so if he can destroy the home, he's got it. And that's what's happening in our culture today. In the home, God has established an order, and a lot of people don't like hearing me say this, but bear with me on this. I believe the husband is the head of the home, submitting himself to the will of the Heavenly Father. Notice that. The husband is the head of the home, submitting himself to the will of the Heavenly Father. If you are a husband as the head of the home and you're not submitting yourself to the will of the Heavenly Father, you're not being the husband that God designed and called for you to be. How's that one? So it doesn't just get off scot-free. Secondly, I believe that the wife, the mother, is in subjection to her husband. Listen, not as a doormat, not as second, but as a helpmate. As a helpmate. You know, Kathy and I, we walk alongside each other. But Kathy and I believe that I am the head of the home. Yet she's along, and there's decisions she makes. She lets me wear the pants. In fact, she tells me which ones to wear, and that's fine. Not really. Although I will say on Sunday morning, she said, "What did you pick out to wear today?" Because I can't tell you how many times I would come downstairs in my dress, and she would say, "You're going to wear that?"
Oh, amen to that one.
So yeah, from then on, it's just kind of like, no, I'm just testing you. I'm just testing you. But the wife is not in a, Ephesians tells us that wives are to submit to their husband, but it also tells us that the husband is to treat the wife as Jesus treated the church, who gave himself up for her and died for her. So you know what? It's not too hard to be subjection to your husband if your husband's living for you and doing things for you and going on. Children then are to submit themselves to their parents, and when they do that, they're going to be blessed. And if this order is followed, the home will be blessed and will be a blessing to everybody in it and everybody around it. Still, there's a lot of homes today that are a wreck. We just see that because children have not learned about the fifth commandment. Children don't understand that this commandment, and parents, honestly, sometimes parents don't live up to being honored. Some parents parent in such a way that why would you want to honor them? They don't ask for it. They don't deserve that. So it's fitting that this commandment falls where it does. Understand, it falls at number 5. The first 4 commandments are about vertical. What did I say the last couple of weeks? Us and God, right? From 5 through 10, it's about us and other people. This is the one right in the middle. This is kind of like the dividing line between the commandment of us and God and the commandment of us and other people. You see, when we're out of step in the home, when things aren't right in the home, we will be out of step with God and we're going to be out of step with other people. When there's tension in the home, some of you probably already have felt this, and I've felt this. We felt this in our life. Kathy and I are far from perfect. I mean, she's real close, but far. Good save, right, Bob? we're not perfect at all, and so there's been tension in our home. We've had that, and if you tell me you have never had any tension in the home, I got to go about the commandment, thou shalt not lie. We'll just switch to that one. Because you can't have, anytime people are together, there's tension. We just rub each other sometimes the wrong way, and there's tension. But when there's tension in the home, things outside don't work so well. If I got tension in the home and I have to go to work and relate to somebody at work, and they could say something that just makes me pop up, So things don't work so well. So you got to be in line at the home. It's in the parental relationship that we first learn how as children to submit to the Lord and then how to serve other people. So we're going to look at this verse here, what it teaches. So you should have on your note sheet the scripture. Take a look at that. Find that, please. We're going to read this together. There's instructions here for both not only children and honoring mom and dad, but also for parents as well and people as well. You got it? Okay, let's read this together. Exodus 20, 1 and 3, and we're going to skip to verse 12. Let's read. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. This verse makes it really plain that parents are to be held in high regard. They're to be honored. Ephesians 6:2 tells us, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with the promise. Why? That it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. In other words, what Paul is saying there, I brought you in, I can take you out. Right? Fathers, do not, here's one for dads. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. That means frustrate them. That means try to get them to do things that just they can't do, that's beyond them, or just be a bully to them or whatever. Do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and the instruction of the Lord. There's a lot here. In fact, when most people, I think about the commandment of honoring your father and mother, in our mind we go immediately to children, obey your parents. There's a difference. How many know there's a difference between obey and honor? And so we're going to look at that here. This commandment says honor. So honor means to give great weight to hold as valuable. So children are to highly respect mom and dad as valuable, to give great weight to authority. Mom and dad have been entrusted by God to supervise children until they're old enough to be on their own. I just can't say enough about raising the children so they can leave the house. Yeah, that's right. Raising Jenna so she can leave. We want children to be raised and grow to be good members of society and so they can leave the house. We don't want, for some people, the children are there till they're 18, till they're 20, till they're 35. That's too long. It's like the robin. She lays eggs, she hatches the eggs, and she's feeding the little birds, and what happens one day? She comes, boot. Better fly, and so you got to start flapping before you hit the ground, and the idea is to lovingly kick them out. Your time here is done. It's time to go. And so that's what we do. And I know that, Chelsea, I'm going to pick on you, but you're probably thinking, I can't imagine sending Jenna out into the world, because I thought the same thing. Kathy and I thought when we're having children, do we really want to bring kids into this world? Anybody ever asked that question? And I think every generation asks the question, do I really want to bring kids into this world? And man, as beautiful as they are, that Jenna is just a sweetheart. And by the way, your hair looks great, Chelsea. Yeah, I did my part there. So children, while they're at home, though, are supposed to be subject to their parents. I bet everybody has said this or heard this. My dad always told us, while your feet are under my table, you're going to do what I say. Anybody ever hear that one? Yeah. And so we did, and that caused me to want to get my feet out from under his table a little faster and move on. But, children honor their parents for what they've done in rearing them and for the sheer position that God has put parents in. It's terrible to see a young child or young person that's disrespectful to their children. You've probably seen that in the supermarket out and about where the kids just, are disrespectful. And I remember times when each one of my children, the two oldest tried to do something that was disrespectful. We stopped that real quick. The youngest, she learned from the two oldest. But, we have to stop those. But when children at a young age and all through the home are disrespectful and parents allow that, it's just going to be trouble down the road. It is trouble down the road. And I think it also shows a lack of regard for God, because God has deemed that parents should be honored. So as we grow older, we continue to honor our parents. We continue to respect our parents. As children grow up, it's natural for them to leave the parents' home. That's what God planned. That's what He told Adam and Eve. He said, when they came together, these two shall be one flesh. You leave your mother and father, now you shall cleave to your wife, He told Adam, right? And so he created us to leave home and to start our own home and procreate. And when this happens, children are no longer under direct authority. A lot of parents miss this point. A lot of parents, after Billy and Susie get married and get their own home, Billy and parents seem to want to have some control along the way. Well, you need to do this, you need to do that. When I do my premarital counseling, I say to kids, you know what? You no longer need to be obedient and obey your parents. You need to honor them. But you don't have to obey them. Treat them as good friends, And because good friends don't come and rearrange your furniture, good friends don't come and tell you what color to paint your wall, good friends don't, so you honor them, and you say, oh, thanks for the input, but no thanks. I know I had that with my dad. I'm talking about my dad maybe a lot today, and I think about my dad. I lost him last year, and well, I didn't lose him. I mean, I know where he's at. It's just kind of a funny term we say, isn't it? He passed away. How's that? So I remember one time at the barber shop back in Indiana, we're both sitting there. It's a slow day, and sitting in his chair, and he looks at me and said, "Tim, go get me a cup of coffee." I'm like 35. And I realize the culture he's raised in, and he's just doing from the culture he comes from, and that's just how it was in the Amish culture. And so I understand that. I just looked at him, and as lovingly as I could, I said, "Your legs broke?" He looked at me and said, "What?" I said, "You heard me." I said, "You can walk back there and get your coffee." Anyway, I got his coffee. I mean, I did tell him. I did say, "Are you?" Anyway, But even though children leave home at some point and leave mom and dad's authority, they still need to respect, still need to honor mom and dad. It's pretty easy to do, to honor mom and dad. When you remember sacrifices, as Carol said, they've made. I understand that some parents haven't done that, haven't come from the loving home that I had. And I do remember things when dad would discipline. I remember some pretty tough things. My dad was a barber, and he had a razor strop. I remember that, and I was just thinking about that. And you know what? It's interesting, as I was thinking about that, I don't remember the pain, but I remember having it used. And I remember that, okay, Dad says yes, it's yes. If Dad says no, it's no. And so that was a teachable moment in my life. But we should always honor and appreciate what the parents have done. We don't always know the sacrifice that they have made. For me, I remember I've shared this story before. Events at school. My dad didn't come to a lot of events at school because he was working. He was working, so I had shoes to play ball in. He was working, so I had this to do, and I understand that. And that's why that when I was older, I knew the importance of Dad being involved. And I wasn't married yet, or maybe we were, I can't remember, but my younger brothers, or my younger brother behind me is 3 years behind me. The baseball team is going to semi-state. It's on a Saturday, the busiest day in the barbershop. I said, "Dad, take off, let's go." He, "We can't do that." "Can we do that?" I said, "You own the barbershop, you can do that." "You sure we can do that?" "Yeah, we can do that." Because I thought it was important for him to be at my brother's game. So I never held that against my dad. I understood, but I was trying to help him along the way. So let me say just a word about some parental advice. Many young people simply just refuse to hear what their parents tell them. I'm speaking from experience, and because of that, we often get into trouble. Been there, done that. Young people need to remember that parents speak from wisdom out of the experiences of hard knocks. My kids, they've all come and told us something, and I was saying something back, and they'd say, "Dad, you don't understand." Anybody ever hear that one? Yeah. And my reply was simply, "No, I've never been 16 before in my life. You're right, I don't understand that." Of course I understand. It's kind of like the little girl who was unhappy because her mother said no, she can't do some things. And that night her mother heard her pray this prayer: "Please, Lord, don't give her any more children. She doesn't know how to treat the one she's got now." But the attitude of children does change. You've noticed this. Most of you are older, and you've seen this change. I got closer to my parents the older I got. Kathy's best friend, sorry, Lori, but it's her mom. Kathy and her mom talk a lot, and I just think that's great. And those things happen, and it changes. Especially during teen years, kids don't show a lot of respects to mom and dad. They're trying to find their own way, and things are happening to them. But as we get older, we start to see that mom and dad knew a whole lot more than we gave them credit for. How many of you, at some point in raising your children, felt like after your Like at some point your children felt like, hey, Mom and Dad, you must have went to school. You got smarter along the way here. What happened, you know? I mean, I did, and I think my kids did too. So while this commandment speaks primarily to young people and children, there are also some things for parents that we can share with parents and we can help. The word here tells us that we're to honor them, but it doesn't say that we have to love them or like them, even if they've been bad parents. There's been bad parents, and it's hard to love. It's hard to, some kids just want to get out of the house. I totally understand where that's coming from, but God still has commanded and ordained the role of a parent to be honored. Also, children will have a hard time respecting a parent that hasn't lived that life that's worthy of honor. So here are some 3 ways parents can earn respect of children, and you might remember this and pass this on to your kids or grandkids. First, by faithfulness. Parents need to be faithful. Parents need to remember that children will respect a life that's lived faithfully. Children want to see their parents living a life with their best interest in mind. Children don't want to have to worry about what's going to happen to me. There's enough of that that's going on. If you sow love into the children, you'll reap love. If you sow respect, you'll reap respect and honor. Let's face it, there's too many parents who want their kids to do the right thing because it makes them look better. What are the neighbors going to think? If my kid does this, what are they going to think? If they're going to do that, what are they going to think? Others are devastated when the children start to turn out differently than what they planned. A parent's job, though, is to unconditionally love and be faithful to their children. It really is. I believe your kids do something wrong, grandkids do something wrong, you love them. You love them. You don't give up on them. You stand beside them. They may make a decision you think is, whoa, that is so... I'm going to tell you what. Everything is redeemable. Jesus Christ came so everything is redeemable. So they make a bad decision, that can be redeemed one day. And if you don't like the decision, your job as a grandparent, as a parent, is to be on your knees in prayer for them. Because we're not walking in their shoes. We're not there. You may say, well, it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way. Hey, this world is nuts, and it's trying to take everybody with it. So kids will respond to that kind of love if we love them unconditionally and be faithful to them. When we live as though the Lord is optional in our life, our kids will see that. And the kids will believe that. And some of you can attest to that. You might say, well, Tim, when I was young, raising children, church wasn't that big a deal. How are your kids doing now? They tend to follow that. You know, so Lord can't be optional. He has to be number one. Don't expect our children to be faithful Christians if we're not. Don't expect our grandchildren. So the thing you can say is, well, I'm past that, Tim. What do I do about that with I got my grandkids. I see the error of what I did. I should have done better. Have a conversation with your kids. Have a conversation with your grandkids. And when you're honest with them and you say, I should have done better, I wish I would have, this is why, they'll respect that. And the second thing is by being fair. We earn respect by being fair. So we're firm in what we say, but we're softened by our actions. That's been a tough one for me. There's times when I just, as a dad, would fly off the handle. You know, the pressures come in, and so, you know, Kathy would soften me a lot, and that would be good. I don't know if you've noticed, but kids don't come with a training manual. You know, we got the Word of God, and outside of that, there's nothing else that says, do this. Step one, do this. The third thing is by fruitfulness. Parents can earn respect from children when they can see their children, when they can see their parents investing their lives into their children. Be there. When we give them love, when we give them time and patience and encouragement and hope, they respond with respect and love of their own. You know, I've heard people say, I don't spend a lot of time with my kids, but when I do, I give them quality time. Anybody ever heard of quality time? I want to just debunk quality time. Kids need time. They just need time. And I'm not talking about time where we're sitting together watching TV together. I'm talking about active time together. There is nothing like time. This issue of quality time twice a month or once a week or whatever, that doesn't cut it. They just want time with you. And it's so important. You give your grandkids time, and I'll tell you what, they will be visiting Grandma and Grandpa more and more and more. When you give your grandkids time, they want to come and see you. Anybody experience that? Any grandparents experience that? Yeah, they want to come and see you, and it's just a matter of time. You can't. Time is a precious commodity. We don't have much time with them. You want to make an impact in their lives while you can. There was a little boy who was concerned about his parents. He told how his father worked hard to provide all his needs, and how his mother slaved around the house, cooking and cleaning up after him and taking care of him when he was sick. When asked what he had to be worried, what he was worried about, he said, "I'm just afraid that they might escape." I'm liking this. Exodus 20 tells us, "Honor your father and mother." Why? So that you may live long in the land the Lord your God has given you. Our text contains more than a don't. It also has the great promise. It reminds me of those who honor their father and mother. There are some promises that they can have. One of the promises is that our days can be lengthened. Ephesians 6:3 tells us that when a child honors his parents, God has promised him longer days on earth. And I believe we can take that literally. I believe we can do that literally. And this being true, then we can see that refusing to honor parents has an opposite effect. That mom and dad have the right to take you out. No.
I like it.
The third one is the promises our days are lightened. Not only does the Lord promise the length of days to those who honor their parents, but He also promises blessings to people who choose to live that way of life. Here's a story about George Washington. He had his heart set on going to sea. And in fact, he made the decision, and he promised he wanted to go to sea, and he had his trunk already on board the ship. A trunk is like a bag, a suitcase. In case you're young enough, you don't know what a trunk is. And when he went to tell his mother goodbye, he found her in tears and with a heavy heart that was against him going on this journey. He turned to the hired servant and he said, "Go get my trunk off the ship." He said, "I will not leave and break my mother's heart." Her response to him was this: "George, God has promised to bless the children that obey their parents." God did bless his life and still uses his influence today. In fact, if you just want to read something interesting, read about George Washington and the many ways God blessed and spared his life throughout history. But by the same token, God has a curse for those who refuse to obey their mother and father. In fact, Proverbs 30 verse 17 says, "The eye that mocks a father and scorns a mother, the ravens of the valley will pluck it out, and the young eagles will eat it." Well, that should be encouraging. Children should treat their parents with the respect they deserve, and they are blessed by God. As I said, my dad's gone now, and I miss him. I'm going to call Mom today and talk to her later today. But as I look back over the years of my life, I realized that in a lot of ways, I was a disobedient child. You know, I was not as perfect as you see now. I've come to perfection in my years. But I was a wild child at those times, and Bill and Gwen. Well, I wasn't a child anymore. We got married. They heard me playing music out of the garage. Right? But my great blessing is that, as disobedient as I was, my parents prayed for me. They prayed for me and my brothers, and that is a blessing. My mom told me once. She said, I stayed awake at night when you were out and about, and I waited till you came home, and I prayed until you came home. I prayed till all of you boys would come home. And she told me that later in life, and I just thought, wow, I never knew that. I'm so thankful to have a mom and dad who would do that. So what I am today is a product of the investment they made in prayers and tears, and many years of training, growing up in the church, being part of the church. And I think it's the same for all of us today. We may not always agree with parents, and we may not always understand parents, but they are what they are, our parents, if those of you who still have parents. And they deserve all the love and respect that we can possibly give them. We may not always have been the best parents in the world. How many know that? May not have always made the right decisions. I hadn't done that. And the respect we're receiving is a product of that. But God is faithful, and He redeems the times for us. Amen? And so dads, I just say, God has blessed you, and happy Father's Day to you. Moms, belated Father's Day. We tried to do something virtually online, but it's just not the same as being here. Parents, grandparents, God bless you guys. And I want to encourage you to make an impact in the life of a child, especially in your family. A child that's in your sphere of influence. See what you can do to impact that life. You know, I hear Bill sharing with me about when the grandkids come up and the fishing and doing that. Steaks, right? They started putting steaks out, and they all like to come up now. So, you know, you just got to find out what it is and what it works so you can have a voice in their life and give them direction that they need. Let me